Hey, ever wonder which tractors could strike fear into the hearts of even the most seasoned farmers? Well, today we're going to dig into 10 scary tractors that you didn't know existed, uncovering machines that left fields, and sometimes even operators, shaken. From early 1900s designs with deadly oversights to modern-day behemoths that practically defied belief, each of these tractors carried a story steeped in danger. So grab a seat, because what you're about to hear may change how you see farm equipment forever. Number 10, the Fordson Model F. The Fordson Model F holds a lofty place in American agricultural history as the first mass-produced, lightweight tractor engineered by Henry Ford and Son. Released in 1917, its affordability made mechanized farming accessible to countless small operations. Yet behind the success lay a darker aspect. The Model F's design led to a notorious reputation for tipping over backward, especially on inclines. According to archival material at the Henry Ford Museum, the risk stemmed from its higher center of gravity combined with a narrow wheelbase, making it prone to rearing up even on gentle slopes. Ford introduced the Model F as a cost-effective alternative to heavier steam-driven rigs, employing a four-cylinder engine that produced roughly 20 horsepower at the drawbar. For the time, it was a game-changer, relatively light in weight and simpler to operate than massive steam tractors. However, that very lightness made it susceptible to abrupt weight shifts. Farmers who were used to slow, heavy traction engines discovered that the Model F could jump forward or backward if the clutch was released too quickly or if the front wheels encountered an obstacle. Operators learned to improvise solutions, like adding extra counterweights or approaching hills on a diagonal rather than head-on. These makeshift fixes did help, but they didn't fully eliminate the sudden, frightening lurch that could send the Fordson toppling backward onto its driver. Tragically, documented incidents from the 20s reveal how some owners paid the ultimate price for this precarious flaw. The chilling tales weren't just urban legends. Plenty of farmers would share harrowing anecdotes about losing control on a slope. Given that the Fordson was so widespread, those horror stories circulated widely, ultimately forging an image of a tractor that was as dangerous as it was revolutionary. The sight of a Fordson rearing up with its front wheels in the air remains a powerful reminder of how early tractor designs could unwittingly put lives on the line. Despite these perils, the Fordson Model F revolutionized small-scale farming. Its affordability and simpler mechanics brought independence to many families who previously relied on draft animals. Industry-wide, it showed manufacturers that lightweight, affordable tractors were a viable and profitable path forward. Over time, improvements in stability, steering, and braking systems addressed many of the original shortcomings, but even so, the Fordson Model F continues to be discussed in agricultural circles as a prime example of how innovation can sometimes race ahead of safety in the rush to modernize. Hey, before we move on to number 9 on our list, I'd like to ask you a quick favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos and don't subscribe, but just think what we could accomplish if 2 more of you subscribed, or 25% of you subscribed, or if all of you did. It costs you nothing, but it makes a big difference to us. Thank you to all that do. Number 9, the Roomley Oil Pole. Built by the Advanced Roomley Company, the Roomley Oil Pole was a colossus of early 20th century fields. Steaming across farmland from the 1910s to the 1930s, it featured a unique oil-cooled engine, an innovation for its day. Now, while it was mechanically forward-thinking, its hulking metal frame, steam-era heft, and the occasional spray of hot oil made operating it a white-knuckle affair. Period testimonies and historical documents highlight incidents involving severe burns or crushing injuries, especially when routine maintenance was neglected. The oil pole relied on an internal combustion engine that burned low-grade fuel like kerosene. Cooling was achieved by circulating oil, which often reached very high temperatures. If seals wore down or a valve malfunctioned, it wasn't water that leaked. Rather, a fine mist of scorching oil could coat exposed surfaces. Standing close to this machinery was risky business. But beyond that, a massive external flywheel rotated at intimidating speeds. If you slipped on oil-soaked footing, there was little to prevent a limb from contacting that spinning mass of iron. Its size alone was daunting. Early models boasted up to 30 horsepower, impressive for an era that was transitioning from steam. Later versions climbed higher in power, dwarfing some competitors. You add on iron wheels with steel cleats, and you got a machine that rumbled like a mechanical beast across a field. Experienced operators treated it with extreme caution, knowing a momentary lapse in attention could spell disaster. Although the oil pole was an engineering leap forward, it helped demonstrate that water wasn't the only cooling medium. Each glimpse of it in operation stirred a certain dread. It hissed, chugged, and clanked in a manner reminiscent of a steam engine, yet it carried all the sudden surges of a combustion engine. Operators took pride in taming the iron monster, but they also carried the weight of potential accidents. Newspaper archives from the 20s mention multiple injuries relating to scalding oil, belt-driven attachments, and slip-and-fall mishaps in oily fields. The oil pole secured a loyal following among large-scale farmers and thrashers who appreciated its raw power and ability to run on cheaper fuels. Its influence trickled down to later tractor models, which explored alternative cooling systems and further refined internal combustion design. In agricultural shows today, collectors display meticulously restored oil poles that serve as both mechanical marvels and cautionary tales. They remind modern audiences of a time when farmers balanced on the precipice between productivity gains and the very real hazards that came with early mechanized might. Number 8. The Avery Road Track. Now, the Avery Road Track was introduced in the late 30s by the Avery Company and sported a distinctive narrow front configuration, a single or dual wheel up front that offered tight turning for row crop cultivation. While touted as a streamlined design for working between crops without damaging them, it came with a hidden menace: heightened rollover risk. The narrower the front end, the easier it became to tip on uneven terrain. Avery was aiming for versatility and efficiency. The road track featured an adjustable rear axle, letting farmers modify wheel spacing to fit different row widths. Though innovative, this design required careful alignment and weight distribution. If the rear axle was set too narrowly, or if a large implement was towed behind, small bumps or ruts could send a tractor leaning at a precarious angle. Contemporary farm journals from the 30s underscore the importance of operator vigilance when using the road track on even a slight incline. Another noteworthy hazard was the high operator's seat relative to the front pivot point. Now, while this vantage provided a clear view of the rows, it also did amplify the sensation of rocking from side to side. Some owners describe feeling a harrowing sway, especially when turning at moderate speed or crossing water furrows. Imagine sitting up high, wheels set close together, creeping along a ditch, or turning sharply. The road track's entire front could suddenly veer left or right. If a rear wheel lifted, you were moments away from a flip. Early reviews mentioned that novices were particularly caught off guard. Even seasoned operators admitted to heart-stopping moments when the tractor began to tip, only to slam back onto all fours at the very last second. Despite these pitfalls, the Avery road track foreshadowed the growing emphasis on row crop tractors that can maneuver nimbly. Other manufacturers soon followed suit, with designs offering adjustable axle widths, although they incorporated improved stability measures. The road track stands as a memory of a bold, albeit risky engineering experiment that shaped the trajectory of row crop tractor development. While overshadowed by larger brands, it still appears in classic tractor showcases, often accompanied by anecdotes from owners who recall gripping the steering wheel a little tighter whenever the road track leaned just a bit too far. Number 7. The Farmall Regular on steel. Now, when International Harvester launched the Farmall Regular in 1924, it kicked off a revolution in row crop farming. It was the first mass-market tractor designed specifically for row crop work, able to handle planting, cultivating, and harvesting with minimal crop damage. However, the early versions outfitted with steel wheels and rugged spade lugs created a myriad of new safety concerns. Those wheels could churn through muddy fields with ease, but turn lethal if a person happened to slip beneath the rotating mass. The Farmall Regular's 4-cylinder engine delivered about 22 horsepower at the drawbar, which was sufficient for a wide range of tasks. By replacing horses on many farms, it saved labor and drastically improved efficiency. Yet the steel lugs, metal spikes which were welded into the wheel circumference, gave the tractor critical traction in slippery conditions at the expense of operator and bystander safety. Any misstep beside those whirling wheels could result in severe lacerations or crushed limbs. Further, adding to the tension was the typical tricycle front end, which had two closely spaced front wheels. This configuration improved maneuverability around rows, but also increased the risk of tipping if one wheel dropped into a ditch or a furrow. The early Farmall Regulars lacked protective fenders or shields, leaving the steel lugs exposed and the driver perched atop a simple seat with minimal rollover protection. Chattering down a gravel path on those steel wheels was enough to rattle anyone's nerves. The metallic clang of lug meets ground was a constant reminder that one wrong move could lead to a horrific accident. Surviving operators from that era often speak of how they'd remain acutely aware of every step around the tractor, even after disengaging the clutch, because the heavy flywheel and wheels sometimes had residual motion that could catch a boot or pant leg. The Farmall regular popularized row crop tractors, solidifying Farmall as a household name. Its success pushed other manufacturers like John Deere and Allis-Chalmers to develop their own row crop lines. Over time, the dangerous steel-lug wheels were replaced by rubber tires, drastically reducing injuries. But nevertheless, many old-timers recall the distinctive ring of steel on stone, and that associated shudder of knowing just how quickly a mundane task could turn catastrophic. Today, impeccably restored steel-wheeled Farmalls appear in tractor parades and museum exhibits, serving as reminders of both the ingenuity and hazards of early mechanized agriculture. Number 6, the JIC Case 150 HP steam traction engine. Towering above many of its contemporaries, the JIC Case 150 HP steam traction engine was a mammoth product of the steam age. Built in the late 1800s and early 1900s by the JIC Case Threshing Machine Company, it was used primarily for heavy threshing and road construction. Weighing over 20 tons, it commanded a presence that blended awe and trepidation. The biggest danger came from its massive boiler, which, if mismanaged or poorly maintained, could turn the entire rig into an exploding bomb. The largest steam traction engines of their time, these Case 150 HP units reportedly produced about 150 horsepower, an enormous feat for an era when many tractors struggled to deliver even a fraction of that. Fueling its power was a coal or wood-fired boiler that required constant monitoring of water levels and pressure gauges. Operators had to keep the steam pressure in the safe zone. Any miscalculation or defect in the boiler could cause a catastrophic explosion, sending shards of metal or scalding steam across the field. Adding to the thrill and terror was the engine's just sheer size. The rear wheels themselves were sometimes as tall as an adult male. Maneuvering such a behemoth on uneven ground wasn't for the faint-hearted, and while the locomotive-like design was effective for pulling large threshing rigs, these machines were notoriously cumbersome to stop if they gathered momentum downhill. Now imagine the hiss of steam escaping from safety valves, the intense heat radiating off the firebox, and the towering silhouette overshadowing anyone standing nearby. An operator had to be vigilant in stoking the fire, checking water levels, scanning for cracks or leaks in the boiler, all of that. Historical records detail gruesome incidents where a single overlooked crack in a riveted seam led to explosions that could claim multiple lives. The knowledge of this latent danger made driving or working around a Case 150 HP a nerve-wracking experience. Although only a handful of these engines were ever built, historical accounts suggest only about 9 were produced, the JIC Case 150 HP steamers became legendary symbols of peak steam power in agriculture. They represented the transitional period where farms were scaling up dramatically. As internal combustion technology improved, steam tractors gradually fell out of favor due to complexity and safety concerns. Still, the few surviving models that appear at heritage events draw enormous crowds, illustrating the fascination with the steel leviathans that once roamed America's prairies. Number 5. The Big Bud 747. Modern farming has had its fair share of behemoths, but none quite rivaled the Big Bud 747 in raw spectacle. Often cited as the largest farm tractor in the world, the Big Bud 747 was custom built in 1977 by Northern Manufacturing in Havre, Montana. Originally rated at around 760 horsepower, and then later climbing to over 900 through modifications, it tips the scales at more than 100,000 pounds when fully ballasted. Simply standing beside its 8-foot-tall tires can make a person feel miniature. The Big Bud 747 typically featured a Detroit diesel 16-cylinder power plant, though details have varied over its lifetime. It was designed for serious field work, including deep ripping and pulling immense implements up to 100 feet wide. Its fuel tank can hold hundreds of gallons of diesel, ensuring that it can plow through acres of land without constant refueling. With a turning radius larger than many tractor models themselves, it demanded wide open spaces. While it isn't notorious for the rollovers or boiler explosions of earlier eras, the Big Bud 747's intimidation factor lie in its sheer size and power. Mishandling that weight can flatten smaller structures or cause significant damage to irrigation systems if the operator isn't hyper-aware of the tractor's path. On uneven ground, a heavy slip can lead to a terrifying slide. Some owners mention the hair-raising feeling of controlling a runaway locomotive if traction is lost on wet soil or a slope. Even routine maintenance, like changing a tire, requires specialized equipment and caution, as each wheel can weigh several thousand pounds. The Big Bud 747 became an icon of American farming's bigger is better mindset. Though it's a one-of-a-kind monster, it proved that the agricultural industry was willing to push boundaries. As large-scale farms expanded, they needed bigger, stronger, and more efficient machinery. The 747 captured the public's imagination, landing features in magazines, TV programs, and tractor shows. Even decades later, it stands as a testament to engineering prowess, and a subtle warning of what happens when you push a tractor design close to the edge of manageability. Number 4. The Kirvets K700. The Soviet-era Kirvets K700 is a stark, bright orange machine, often mistaken for an industrial loader. Introduced in 1962 by the Kirov factory in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, it was built to tackle vast tracts of farmland, particularly in the unforgiving conditions of the USSR. With a center-articulated frame and a robust diesel engine, it could twist sharply to navigate tight turns. But that articulation system also brought new dangers, sudden jarring swivels that could catch operators off guard, occasionally leading to near rollovers or collisions. Most K700 variants generate between 220 and 300 horsepower, utilizing big-bore diesel engines that keep the tractor operational in extreme heat or cold. Instead of steering the front wheels, the K700 bends at the middle. This articulation allows for a surprising small turning radius for a machine its size. But it also demands a deft hand at the control. If one section gains more traction than another, the pivot can swing abruptly, resulting in a whip-like effect. On older models, the braking system was rudimentary by modern standards, so stopping a multi-ton piece of machinery mid-pivot could be a real challenge. Operators who grew up driving more conventional tractors sometimes found the K700 just downright spooky at first. You turn the steering wheel and feel the entire chassis flex beneath you. On uneven fields, that pivot could tilt the cab at alarming angles. And if you hit a hidden rock or hole, the jolt could snap the tractor's articulation joint unexpectedly, potentially dumping the operator out of the seat if not securely belted in, particularly in older models without robust cabin enclosures. For decades, the K700 was synonymous with large-scale Soviet and Eastern European farming, where collective farms sprawled over vast acreages. This rugged tractor fit the bill. It was also exported globally, showcasing the Soviet approach to brute force agricultural engineering. Now, while the pivot design wasn't unique to the K700, the scale of production and widespread use cemented its place in farm lore. Even today, in parts of Russia and Eastern Europe, K700s remain in active service, a tribute to their durability, but also a reminder of the raw, sometimes unnerving power that marked Soviet industrial innovation in the mid-20th century. Number 3. The Minneapolis Molen UDLX Comfort Tractor. Billed as the farm tractor you can drive to church on Sunday, the Minneapolis Molen UDLX, or the Comfort Tractor, was an ambitious attempt to fuse the functionality of a tractor with all the comforts of an automobile. Produced briefly from 1938 to 1939, it included an enclosed cab, a heater, a speedometer, even a radio. Luxuries way unheard of in a standard tractor design at that time. The novelty, however, came with a serious drawback. It could hit speeds on the road of 40 miles an hour, a precarious velocity for a high-centered machine rolling on large agricultural tires. Equipped with a 6-cylinder engine generating about 50 horsepower, the UDLX was more than capable of standard farm chores. The trouble started when it ventured onto public roads. Because the vehicle sat higher and weighed more than a typical automobile, cornering at speed led to a white-knuckle experience. While it held better brakes than most tractors of its era, they still weren't designed for prolonged high-speed use on paved surfaces. Uphill climbs weren't really as big of a deal, but downhill? Well, operators recall the unsettling realization that the weight of the tractor, combined with iffy braking efficiency, could quickly overwhelm its stopping power. Sharp turns became delicate maneuvers, and misjudging a curve could cause the back wheels to skid or the tractor to drift into oncoming traffic. A 1939 news snippet even recounts an accident where a UDLX veered off a gravel road, thankfully without serious injuries, but leaving the driver shaken. In the late 30s, rural roads were designed with slow-moving wagons in mind. Encountering a tractor barreling along at 40 miles an hour was as startling for a fellow motorist as it was the operator. The high stance, relatively narrow wheel track, and large diameter tires made stability an ongoing concern. One little miscalculation when braking or turning at speed could culminate in a jarring wipeout, flipping the tractor onto its side or launching it into a ditch. Minneapolis Molen hoped the comfort tractor concept would be a game changer. Farmers could finish field work and then drive into town in the same vehicle. Yet the $2,155 price tag, steep for the era, and safety anxieties limited its commercial success. Fewer than 150 units were built, and despite the flop, the UDLX still stands out as a technological curiosity that was ahead of its time, blending automotive comforts and farm utility. Collectors today pay top dollar for surviving models, cherishing them as a rare relic of an era when tractor innovation reached for the road, sometimes outrunning the practical realities of rural infrastructure. Number 2, the International Harvester Titan 1020. Now, during the seismic transition from steam power to internal combustion in agriculture, the International Harvester Titan 1020 emerged as a workhorse. Manufactured from 1915 to 1922, it was celebrated for its relative compactness and moderate power output, making it suitable for mid-sized farms. Yet, it also embodied the teething pains of early tractor design. Its large external flywheel, exposed gears, and unshielded belt pulleys posed grave threats to operators, while its kerosene-fueled engine could run hot enough to cause severe burns. Rated for 10 horsepower at the drawbar and 10 on the belt pulley, hence 1020, the Titan employed a 2-cylinder engine. It was typically fueled by kerosene, though it needed gasoline for starting. The dual fuel system made the engine compartments cluttered, with additional lines, valves, and hot surfaces. Overlooking a minor leak could lead to flammable vapors pooling around the engine, a recipe for potential flare-ups. The open flywheel was a signature hazard. Without modern shielding, a slip of the hand or foot near that spinning wheel could lead to disfiguring injuries. Belt-driven equipment like threshers or sawmills added another layer of danger. If the belt snapped or came loose, it could whip around violently. Historical farm safety bulletins from the 20s often warned about wearing snug-fitting clothing and keeping bystanders away to avoid entanglements. Operating the Titan 1020 meant wrestling with a machine that lacked basic safety standards that are now considered standard. Standing near the tractor while adjusting a belt or checking fluid levels demanded constant vigilance. Just bumping into the exhaust manifold could result in a second-degree burn. And meanwhile, the starter crank could kick back with surprising force. Operators had to learn the proper hand crank technique or risk broken fingers, wrists, or even worse. Despite these perils, though, the Titan 1020 was a commercial success that helped thousands of farmers transition from more cumbersome steam engines by offering a more compact footprint and easier startup routine. It accelerated the shift toward internal combustion power. In turn, the Titan laid the groundwork for safer, more user-friendly models down the road, as manufacturers recognized that operator well-being had to keep pace with mechanical innovations. Antique machinery enthusiasts still marvel at the Titan's stripped-down efficiency, even as they acknowledge how risky it must have been to operate in the early 1900s. Number 1, the KIH Autonomous Concept. Jumping into the 21st century, the KIH Autonomous Concept tractor shows that modern-day farming innovations can be just as unsettling as the death traps of 100 years ago, albeit for different reasons. Unveiled in 2016 and based on the Magnum Series platform, this driverless machine is programmed to navigate fields on its own, using GPS guidance, cameras, and an array of sensors. There's no cab, no steering wheel, and it operates under remote oversight. But in large part, it's meant to function with minimal human intervention. The autonomous concept harnesses well over 300 horsepower. Instead of manual control, the tractor is directed via tablet or computer interface, where the farmer plots out roads, field boundaries, and tasks, like tillage or planting. Advanced radar and LiDAR systems scan the environment in real time to avoid obstacles or abrupt changes in terrain. If the sensors detect something unexpected, a fallen branch or an animal in its path, the system can stop and alert the supervisor. Now, while the concept is still in development and not widely commercialized, it represents a radical shift in how farming might be done. A solitary, AI-driven tractor plowing acres of land can work around the clock without the need for breaks or shift changes. Yet this leap in autonomy introduced new layers of risk. Software bugs, cyber attacks, sensor malfunctions, or a momentary lapse in human oversight could translate into a 15-ton vehicle on a collision course. For many, the psychological unease of seeing a powerful machine operate with no one at the controls is enough to spark concern. The prospect of an unforeseen glitch, hacking attempt, or system failure conjures images of runaway machinery. Although robust safety protocols are being tested, the sense of relinquishing direct control to algorithms makes operators wary. In a way, it echoes the same tension that arose when steam engines first rolled onto the fields, the promise of efficiency balanced against the lingering fear of the unknown. While it hasn't been around long enough to rewrite tractor history, the KIH Autonomous Concept signals a new frontier in agriculture technology. As the industry grapples with labor shortages and the push for higher productivity, the idea of an automated fleet grows more appealing. If widely adopted, it could transform the role of the farmer from active driver to remote supervisor. Yet, as with any leap forward, it carries a kernel of uncertainty that's reminiscent of steam boiler explosions or early tractor rollovers, a modern echo of how progress can also stir unease. These 10 tractors, from backflipping Fords to driverless AI behemoths, gave us a sweeping view of how innovation can run hand in hand with hazard. Each machine carved its place in history, showing us that farming technology has never been for the faint of heart. We hope you found this deep dive both informative and a little unnerving, and if you enjoyed learning about these formidable pieces of machinery, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We've got more explorations into the extraordinary world of tractors and farming all coming up for you real soon. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch you next time.